the rich people want what the poor people's got, and the poor people want what the rich people's got, and the skinny people want what the fat people's got, and the fat people want what the skinny people's got. You can never please anybody.
Alrighty then, here we go. I hope your Labor Day morning was more productive than mine. Actually, mine was quite productive. It's just that it wasn't recorded, so that productivity goes out the window. So we're going to do a little bit of history and some other mucking around. Going to get that all taken care of in the next couple of videos. And to start, we're going to talk about Western rationalism. That's the framework in which we all work. It's the core of let's see, how do I get in the camera here? It's the core of science, really. It's where we get our explanatory and predictive power. And the reason I say it all starts with Descartes is because I went to school in a small liberal arts college. I was brought up in the Western tradition. African studies was only just getting its feet on the ground when I was in school at a very liberal school. So it's the framework in which I have been trained and in which I am comfortable. There are other frameworks of knowing, but none of them have the same kind of mathematical and logical structure as what we call science these days. And my friend Dan Sarowitz can add some critiques on that front, but we're not going to get into those. That's advanced class. And it's advanced not even this class, it's advanced another class. So let's start with Descartes. When was Descartes? I'm sure you all know that. I'm hoping that at least some of you might have read his meditations on first philosophy. It's not a new work. It was first published in the mid-17th century. 1647 is the date that I found this morning. So that's quite a while ago. This work contained his greatest hit, and let's hopefully, again, even if you haven't read Meditations, perhaps you are familiar with cogito ergo sum, which is Latin. I think Meditations was first published in Latin. The 1647 date, I think, is related to a publication in French. Oh, I forgot to, I'll get back to that. But we can work through the beauty of the simplicity of this. Is about the extent of my Latin. The other famous bit of Latin, of course, is e pluribus unum. In many we are one. Extra points for knowing where that came from. Also, extra points for knowing the name of the band of the very intriguing opening music credit intro for this video. Let's see. So cogito. Cogito has to do with thinking, perhaps knowing. My kid would be able to tell me that, and some of you have perhaps studied Latin and can fill this in. Ergo is therefore. In math, it's the three little dots. In language we can all read, is therefore, and sum is to exist. So perhaps exist, close enough. Perhaps you know this better as, and if none of you, hopefully you've all heard this, I think, therefore, whoops, I am. Now, why do I say this is where it all starts? Well, because Descartes gets here in an effort to prove the existence of God. He is doing a thought experiment, the meditation. The meditation's part's gone, meditation. And he's trying to decide definitively whether or not God exists. And so he starts thinking about things that he can know for sure. And he eliminates thing after thing after thing. In particular, he feels he can't really trust his senses because there could be a power that is deceptive and maybe they're wrong. I mean, sometimes we think we saw something crazy, but in fact it was something else that was a little less crazy. That sort of thing. So he strips away and strips away and strips away, and eventually he gets to the fact that he is darn sure that he is thinking and that he is the one that is doing the thinking. So he comes to a point where his subjective knowing is in some sense confirmed. He then goes through in some of the later, I think there's 6 meditations. He then goes through an argument that God must be benevolent and would not mislead him. And so then he can build up other things. Let's see. I think therefore I am. So a lot of what Descartes is trying to do is separate true from false, and it gets at this notion of truth and falsehood. Sometime in that same neck of the woods, earlier on maybe. I think earlier on actually. Copernicus was trying to do some of the same things, and Copernicus was an early scientist. The early science, at least in among Europeans, probably also. It's very important to understand that the Arab nation, the parts of the world that speak Arabic, the Arabs were keen astronomers, keen mathematicians, and developed a lot of that stuff long before the Greeks came along. So I'm throwing the Greeks out here. That's a different problem. In terms of Western rationalism, I'm starting here. The other thing that we get here is the mind-body split. Descartes can't even be certain that he has a body, but he knows he has a mind. And this leads to I've made a reference to brains in a vat in another place. This gets into another kind of serious problem in the philosophy of cognition and other things, but again, not this course. But Bertrand Russell, so we have this search for truth, and Bertrand Russell writes about Copernicus, apart from the revolutionary effect on cosmic imagination. And now remember, Copernicus is the person who moves the center of the universe from Earth, solar system, from Earth to the sun. So the revolutionary effect on cosmic imagination is the Earth is no longer the center of the cosmos. The great merits of the new astronomy were 2. First, the recognition that what had been believed since ancient times, at least among certain groups of Europeans, might be false. Second, that the test, so there's that possibility of things being true or false and things that we believe are true being shown to be false. And second, that the test of a scientific truth is patient collection of facts combined with bold guessing as to laws binding the facts together. And I'm going to get back to that statement in a video in a little bit. But that's the idea that we can know what's true and what is false through observation of the external world. And despite Descartes' doubts that get him here, he builds things back up again to observing about the world. And again, this is the subjective-objective challenge. It gets to the truth being out there. Anyway, yeah, that's fine. All of this is driven through. If I lose my glasses, remind me where they are. Through an approach to learning called reductionism. And reductionism is the idea that we can learn about how things work by taking them apart, and that we take them apart. So if we want to learn about a tree, we look at the tree and we say, oh, well, it has at least two, I'm going to say 3 different kinds of things. It has leaves, it has branches, and it has a trunk. Well, it also has roots, so 4. And then we could study each of those things. We could study the leaves and learn about photosynthesis and that sort of thing. We could study the branches and learn about circulation and how nutrients move around. We could study the trunk and learn about strength and all that sort of thing. And we could study the roots and discover that, in fact, a lot of the biomass is actually underground, and maybe the tree is not the tree that we see, but the thing that's under the ground. Who knows? And then once we've studied all those things, we put all those things together and we say, oh, that's a tree, and it all works, right? Well, yeah, sometimes it does. Other times it doesn't. That's the sum, the whole being greater than the sum. So when reductionism works, there's a certain linearity to the systems. That is, we can take things apart, and the separating of the thing from the whole doesn't change the thing, and it doesn't change the whole. Now, on the other hand, a lot of what systems thinking is all about is that that's not true. That, in fact, when you take a thing out of the whole, it's not the same thing, and the whole isn't the same thing. And so system thinking allows us to draw boxes, boundaries. We're going to talk about boundaries in a little bit, around chunks of a system and ignore the internal workings and really look at how those chunks are connected together. So systems thinking is really about thinking about the connection among things rather than the detail of the thing itself. All right, and I talked about linearity. That's the ability to put things back together. In math, if any of you are mathematicians, linear systems don't have exponents in them. They have no cross terms. And nonlinear systems have cross terms. X, a function of x and, well, let's say that z is a function of x and y. If it's linear, you can look at z as a function of x, and you can look at z as a function of y, and you can add the two together, and you still have z. You don't have any terms where x and y multiply. Yeah. Just let me reiterate this a number of times. There is not an exam. So you don't have to remember 1647, because I can't remember 1647. I usually remember middle of the 17th century. That's usually what I remember. It's kind of important to remember the order of things. So 1647 comes before the 1970s, which is what you should do now. You should go and read the bit on Nixon and the environment while I change batteries and that sort of thing, have a little bit of coffee. And then I'll come back and talk about how we get from reductionism to holism and systems in the environment. All for now.